The ATA stands for the Air Transport Auxiliary. It was a civilian organisation that was set up to ferry planes to the fighter stations around the country. I think there were over 1,000 men and there were only 168 women. So they were in a minority, but they were very much flying on equal terms with the men for equal pay and in equal conditions. They were incredibly brave. I mean, they were flying everything from the small tiger moths to huge bombers, and all without radios, without arms, and in all weather conditions. So they were really, really skilled, incredible pilots. I'm Kate Lord-Brown, and we're here today at the Imperial War Museum in Duxford with some of the wonderful planes that feature in my book, The Beauty Chorus. The Beauty Chorus is being published the 1st of April 2011, which also happens to be the birthday of the RAF, the 1st of April, and it's being published by Corvus. It's obviously inspired by the true story of the ATA, and I've tried to weave fact and fiction together with bringing in the history of the ATA, but also creating 3 fictional characters, Evie, Stella and Megan. And they all come from very different backgrounds, and Evie is part of the real beauty chorus, the sort of pre-war flying club scene, which was all sort of parties and fast cars, huge horses and skiing and flying these amazing planes. Stella is a young mother who's come from overseas to help do her bit for the war effort. And Megan is a young teenager from a farm in Wales, and she's exactly the kind of person that could fly a plane but not drive a car. So you have these incredible women coming from a really wide range of places. It all really started with a photograph. I saw a tiny obituary in a flying magazine at home. My husband's a pilot, so there's always flying magazines lying around. And I saw this photograph of a very beautiful young woman climbing into a Spitfire. And I was just immediately curious, and I just wanted to know more about these women who had flown fighter planes during the war. Because even coming from a family where we've got people who flew Lancasters during the war, we've got a couple of bomber pilots, and I had no idea of the contribution these women had made, and it blew me away, and it just really felt like a story that needed to be told. The plane behind me is the Spitfire, and it's really the ultimate plane that all the girls wanted to fly. And initially they were told that flying operational aircraft, the fighter planes, was beyond a woman's capabilities. So of course that was not going to be settled for. And Pauline managed to get permission for the girls to fly firstly the Hurricanes and then the Spitfires when they came through. And Duxford, I think, was the first place to have Spitfires in their fighter squadron, so it's great being here today. This is actually one of the later marks, so it's not one that Evie would have flown, but they're beautiful. I mean, as you can see, they're just an iconic design. The girls have described the plane as being like a well-fitted cocktail dress, because the cockpits were so small and so perfectly formed that it felt as if you were part of the plane. Rather than flying it, it was as if your thoughts transmitted straight to the plane. Women pilots of the ATA, what strikes you most when you hear them talking about their wartime experiences now is their incredible modesty. And when you think of the very, very dangerous work that they did, their contribution has been forgotten, really. I mean, it's only recently that they've received a badge of honour from Downing Street. And the BBC made a recent documentary about them as part of the Battle of Britain series, which I think is fantastic. I mean, it's high time that their contribution was remembered for what it was. I mean, other countries like Russia had women fighter pilots fighting alongside the men. We didn't actually have that. So there was no equivalent of the White Rose, who was a very famous Russian fighter pilot. And in Germany they had, I believe, suicide squadrons of female pilots ready to carry out sort of banzai operations. That was never put into practice, but they did have very high-profile female pilots there that the ATA were aware of. Although I don't think many of the girls particularly wanted to fight alongside the men. Their contribution behind the scenes was invaluable, and it's really the untold and forgotten story of the war.